Uh-oh.
Competitive fight for Inoue, and he went out, he paid to get an exception to not fight Akhmadaliev. It's all right, you can do that every now and again, I've done it before. And he fought TJ Deheny. The WBA said, okay, we'll allow this, but you've got to fight Akhmadaliev next. No problem, no problem. He fought TJ Deheny. The WBA came out and said, you've got to fight Akhmadaliev, and he went, I've got another mandatory. It's like, no, you've been ordered twice to fight him, you've got to fight him. Oh, I'm fighting Sam Goodman. No disrespect to Sam Goodman, who's a tough kid, cannot win a round against Inoue. It's a bloodbath, right? MJ's the only fight for him. He is ducking Akhmadaliev. And I'm not even saying it's Inoue, but the team is ducking Akhmadaliev.
The latest seems to indicate that if Naoya Inoue fails to fight MJ Akhmadaliev after the Sam Goodman fight, MJ will be moved from interim to full WBA champion, the WBA confirmed to Matchroom's Kevin Rooney. But if it's the way that Eddie Hearn says it is, why haven't they stripped Inoue already? It's been ordered 2 times already, according to Eddie, but Inoue is still WBA champion, so one would think that if he were non-compliant with a WBA order, they would have stripped him. They would have stripped him by now.
No.
I have my own reservations about the WBA and their ability to do their job. But away from all of that, you have to remember that MJ was the last guy to become Naoya Inoue's mandatory challenger. It was never his turn.
Sam was always supposed to be the next guy.
And he's going to be, as of next month. Next month, Inoue faces Sam Goodman. If he gets him out of the way, MJ has to be next. I think that much we can all agree upon. That after the Sam Goodman fight, there's no reason to delay the MJ Akhmadaliev fight any further. And if he does, I will concede that he is ducking that fighter. The latest on Inoue and what we can expect in the immediate future, apparently we shouldn't expect a Nakatani fight, a Junto Nakatani fight. That is not going to happen in the coming year, according to Hideyuki Ohashi. Naoya Inoue's promoter has said that a fight between Inoue and Junto will not take place in 2025. Inoue will fight 3 times in the coming calendar year, the first of which is Sam Goodman. Then he is expected to box in either Las Vegas and possibly Saudi Arabia later on in the year.
Make it make sense.
If Junto Nakatani is not set to move up in weight and challenge Inoue in the coming calendar year, that affords him more time to unify his own division, the bantamweight division, where there are 3 other champions for him to fight. He should follow in Inoue's footsteps, become undisputed there, as that will make the fight between them even bigger. Undisputed versus undisputed. And I'm all right with that.
I'm okay.
As far as Inoue's schedule in the coming calendar year, if Mr. Ohashi is saying that Inoue's going to fight 3 times in the coming calendar year, one of those fights has to be the MJ Akhmadaliev fight. There's no reason to postpone it any longer.
We already know that one of those fights is Sam Goodman. The second one, ideally, would be MJ Akhmadaliev.
And the third?
Theoretically, by the time that Inoue makes it past both Sam Goodman and MJ Akhmadaliev, if he does make it past them, Inoue's next mandatory challenger will be ready.
Last time I checked, unbeaten up-and-comer from Mexico, David Picasso, via the WBC, is in a pole position to challenge Inoue for what he's got. So theoretically, if Inoue beats MJ and he beats Sam, that would be the next guy, theoretically.
I think most people are picking Inoue to make it past Sam, but what about MJ? What about the standout amateur that some people are convinced Inoue is avoiding.
Well, I do think that MJ can give him a more stern test than, say, TJ Doheny did or than Sam Goodman is about to. That in many ways, at this time, that's the best fight you can hope to make at 122. But at the same time, I don't have any illusions about MJ. This is the same guy who looked quite human opposite the ring Jose Velasquez of Chile.
Who?
It was 3 fights ago that he fought this guy. And I remember hearing that Jose doesn't have any prior amateur experience and he's not that world traveled.
This unheralded fighter was able to give MJ a stern test. And this unheralded fighter is no Naoya Inoue. He doesn't bring to the table all the things that he knew he does. So if Jose can give you problems, he knew he can do a lot more than that.
It's not just the Marlon Tapales fight you have to look at. Marlon Tapales, a common opponent between them, that's a triangle theory. Triangle theories don't work. Look at MJ's other fights.
I think it's a good fight. And I think beating MJ will be more of a challenge than, say, beating TJ Doheny or beating Sam Goodman, Luis Nery, those guys. Yeah, this is a great fight.
But I've still got Inoue winning. And I noticed that MJ Akhmadaliev is a fighter that gets rather big in between fights. That he's a big 122. Not in terms of height and length,
but girth.
Weight. I wonder how he's making 122. Is he struggling to get there? He might be by the time that this fight rolls around, and that could affect his punch resistance.
Because how many punchers has MJ actually fought?
In 14 professional bouts. Let's not put MJ on a pedestal because of a prevalent narrative.
That's what some people did with Luis Nery.
It's what some more people did with Stephen Fulton. Before that, a lot of American fight fans that thought Stephen Fulton would be the one to, quote-unquote, expose the monster. None of that happened.
With MJ, I think he can push him. I think he can push back against Inoue, but I've still got Inoue winning.
More so if MJ keeps the kind of schedule that he has been keeping, because there's a year in between his last fight and the one before that. That doesn't favor him. All that inactivity. You better find something to do while you wait for that Inoue fight to come around.
This ain't the fight where you get off the couch and shake off ring rust.
This ain't the one. You better get Eddie Hearn to get you a stay busy fight in either the first or second quarter of the coming calendar year.
Davis a couple of days ago said that 25 may be his last year boxing. What do you feel about that when he may or may not fight guys like Shakur or Devin? What would his legacy be then in your eyes?
I think his legacy will be in his time, which he need to be respected for, that Tank did what most of the greats did in their time. Accomplish the highest goal that you can accomplish. And also, one ballot, as far as I'm concerned, Hall of Famer. So, based on that, in his time, as far as his era, where it was loaded with fighters or fights and fighters that could have fought each other and they didn't. Every era has that same situation. I don't think they're ever going to go away or ever would be something dismissed from eras of conversation. But I think Tank Davis, understand his path and going to go by what he feels. Hey, he's young still. Might change his mind. Who knows?
What would seem like a no-brainer to a lot of people, that Gervonta Davis does not have a Hall of Fame-worthy career. Nothing Hall of Fame-worthy happened.
He didn't fight the best fighters in the divisions that he campaigned in.
No.
Didn't fight the best fighters of his era. And he himself never went on to become the best fighter of his era.
It's not to say that you have to tick off on all those boxes to get into the Hall of Fame, but you do need to tick off on some of them. That Gervonta Davis is 30 years old, having never unified a title in any division that he's fought in.
Having never fought the best fighters in any of the divisions that he's fought in. And for that, Bernard Hopkins thinks that he will get into the Hall of Fame.
Do you agree with him?
I didn't at first, but I'm starting to.
And it's not because I think he deserves it, it's because Bernard does. Bernard and other people like him that continually put Gervonta Davis on a pedestal.
People that tear other, more accomplished, more ambitious fighters down are the same people that put Gervonta Davis on a pedestal.
So why didn't Crawford do that?
Crawford has done it since he was
He never took a risk, not one risk in his career, Crawford.
35?
Who?
40, 47?
Against who, Robert?
54?
Against who? against for 54.
but he did it.
He lost at 54.
But he did it.
He lost to Madrid.
But he did it. But he did it.
But against nobody's.
But he did it, bro.
Okay, so if give Tank those easiest fights and make him undisputed,
That's what he's been getting.
Have Tank go fight Madrimo. Have Tank go fight Madrimo.
that's one weight class up.
At 154.
No, that's 140.
Crawford started at one weight class above him. One weight class above him at 35. Tank started at 130. Those are the two weight classes that first became champ. So have Crawford go to welterweight then.
Tank?
Tank go
Okay.
to welterweight then.
I look at it like this.
And that's why I think he might get inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, because of people like Bernard Hopkins, because of people like Ellie Seckbach, who keep rewarding him for his mediocrity.
Pretending that he's on the same level as so many other fighters that are so much more accomplished than he is.
He might get in. If the voting panel are of a similar mindset to Bernard Hopkins or an Ellie Seckbach, then he's getting in.
I don't think that he deserves it. I don't think there's anything Hall of Fame worthy about Gervonta Davis. I question whether or not he's even a good fighter.
So how could your views on Gervonta Davis be so dramatically different to, say, Ellie Seckbach's?
Because I don't rely on Gervonta Davis to keep the lights on.
I don't rely on access to Gervonta or any other fighter to keep the bills paid, to make money. Ellie does. And because he regularly gets it, he feels a fealty, a loyalty to Gervonta Davis.
He's basically another arm of promotion masquerading as a journalist.
The bar of standard for American boxing has been set exceptionally low.
Well, Gervonta Davis did make a lot of money.
So did Jake Paul. I'd wager that Jake Paul made more money than Gervonta from boxing, so are we going to induct him into the Hall of Fame on that premise? What it really is the American boxer isn't what he used to be. And in this era, he's struggling to keep up with his foreign counterparts. That Gervonta Davis isn't doing here what he knew he's been doing. He knew he is a bona fide 4-division, 2-time undisputed champion. What is Gervonta?
Usyk is a bona fide 2-time undisputed champion.
Canelo Alvarez, a 4-division undisputed champion. Gervonta Davis is none of those things.
Well, Terrence Crawford is.
Well, yeah, but Ellie Nutsack doesn't like Terrence Crawford, remember? He refuses to give him any credit. And this guy represents not only one of the bigger, but one of the older boxing channels in the YTBC. So what does it say about the sport of boxing in America when its lineage and its history is being entrusted to one so inept and partial as Ellie Seckbach? When you're allowing a guy like this to tell the story of boxing in this era.
No, I don't think Gervonta Davis deserves to get into the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's had a Hall of Fame-worthy career. I think most of his career is worth forgetting. But do I think he'll get in? Is that the question?
Because if it is, I think he might. So long as there are people like Ellie Seckbach and Bernard Hopkins to gaslight the boxing community at large about Gervonta Davis. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Jermall Charlo is set to return on March 1st on the undercard of Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach. Coach Ronnie Shields told the Boxing Source that the former IBF junior middleweight and WBC middleweight champion Jermall Charlo will return to the ring on March 1st, PBC pay-per-view on Prime, headlined by Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach.
Ronnie Shields trains Jermall Charlo, who is rumored to be facing WBA gold champion Thomas Cornflake Lamana, another familiar favorite at the PBC, one of their resident whipping boys.
Jermall Charlo last boxed in November of last year opposite the ring Jose Benavidez, and he sat out all of this one. This is a career that has no momentum, no traction, and don't mistake Jermall Charlo with some young guy.
Someone who has the luxury of time? The Charlo brothers as a package are both in their mid-30s.
Neither one of them saw action the entirety of this year, and so it would seem that the shift supervisor is giving the boys paid time off at the warehouse to go do some boxing. Some actual boxing. Can you believe it?
Wow.
I read a recent article from veteran boxing scribe Michael Woods, who recently caught up with former Showtime Sports executive Stefan Espinoza, who now works as a consultant for the PBC. And he was probing him, picking his brain, trying to figure out what can we expect from the PBC in 2025. And in so many words, what Stefan said is you can expect to see the Charlo brothers return. But who wants them to?
Who the hell wants to see Jermall Charlo versus Cornflake Lamana?
Consider that the Jose Benavidez fight late last year was supposed to be a prelude to something bigger, something better. Say, a Caleb Plant fight, or maybe a Demetrius Andrade fight.
From Jose Benavidez Jr. to Cornflake Lamana, with a year's time in between the both of those fights, you might as well retire, buddy.
Well, it's actually over a year. From November of last year to March of the next one, that's well over a year's time. Is this what's keeping you in the sport? Fighting guys like Jose, fighting guys like Cornflake, because for that, you might as well pack it up.
So he's coming back to middleweight.
Well, that's what they're saying, but I don't know that I believe that, because I vaguely recall the Jose Benavidez fight being a super middleweight fight. Super middleweight, not middleweight. Jermall Charlo has not made the middleweight limit in years. So why would he do that now for Cornflake Lamana?
Cornflake has a WBA gold title. Maybe Jermall wants to fight him for it.
Another one of the manufactured trinkets by way of the WBA intended to give a hapless fighter an avenue to call themselves a champion when we all know that they're not. Is that supposed to make a fight between Jermall and Cornflake more intriguing, more attractive? Because it doesn't.
I wonder what the coming calendar year for the PBC is going to look like. They only did about 5 fights this year, and 2 of the 5 were Canelo Alvarez fights that pretty much pay for themselves. What if Canelo doesn't stick around in the coming year? What if he's done doing business with them? How will they fill the void?
Can't think of a good reason for Canelo to stay over there, especially when Turkey El Sheikh wants to do business with him for the big bucks.
The last time the PBC didn't even provide the opponent for Canelo Alvarez. The last 2 guys, one came from Golden Boy and the other was from Matchroom.
Talking about Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, that if the PBC aren't even providing you with the opponents anymore, then what do you need them for?
So maybe he leaves.
If he does, they'll be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle if the best that you can do to fill the void is dust off the Charlo brothers. Oddly enough, Jermall Charlo is still an undefeated fighter. He still has his O intact, but who really cares? I mean, he's proof positive that it's not all about having an unblemished record. It's not all about protecting your O, because he still has his. Though who gives a damn?
I don't.
He still has his O intact. It's because of all the fighters they protected him from. They never let him have that Demetrius Andrade fight, even though it was one of the most sensible and sensical fights to make at the time. And forget about unifying titles with Yanibek Alimkhanuly.
Out of the question. That never even developed into a conversation. When you see a Jermall Charlo still hanging around, it's the exact opposite of why you watch a boxing match.
Ideally, what you want to see is ambitious fighters going at it with each other, hungry and striving to be the best. Well, that clearly isn't what Jermall is doing.
Can't even pretend that it is.
Being honest with you, I don't know what he's doing.
Why he's still around.
Is this supposed to be the Chiefs' support for Gervonta Davis's fight with Lamont Roach? Is this supposed to make it more appealing?
Wow.
So you couldn't even give us the Charlo versus Plant fight? You couldn't make that happen? I think that would have been a better Chiefs support than this.
Yeah, Caleb just had his rebound fight with Trevor McCumbee. We just saw him. I would have thought that that was a prelude for a Charlo fight. So you're not going to make that. That's not going to happen.
Jesus Christ.